It's the summer, so for Ipswich Town fans, it's time for our annual worry about futures of key members of staff. Welcome to Blue Monday, a live reaction show. Happy Friday, everyone. If you're joining us live, you're very welcome. I want to see you in the chat. We've got plenty of time to ask your questions of Dave Diamond and Joe Fairs. And Dave, we'll start with you. It's a bit humid, boy, isn't it?
It's a bit humid, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's a storm brewing, mate.
And there's a storm brewing.
Storm brewing, yeah. No, good to come on tonight. Starting to get withdrawal symptoms a bit. I mean, it's only been, 3 weeks, has it? Month is it already?
Yeah.
Crikey. I mean, whenever actually fixtures must be out reasonably soon.
Couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks.
End of June, isn't it, Joe? Welcome back to you. Good to see you.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, good to be back. Ready to sort of get straight back in. I've had my warm weather training camp ready to go straight in for 25, 26.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Yeah, warm weather training tonight, absolutely. And this is how nerdy I am, folks. I take my job very seriously. I have the lightning strike map on another tab open in case we have to be wary of lightning storms around us. So there's a lot of jeopardy in tonight's pod. Either one of us is going to faint, either because of the heat or because of what we're going to talk about, or there might be a lightning strike. So stay tuned, folks. Anything could happen. Hello to Lee, who's joined us. Let's talk about Kieran McKenna's options. We'll start with that, Lee. So he says, please get it done early. I think we all share that. But I think there's some balance. It's not last summer, even though there is chatter. Paul is with us. Matt is here too. Nick as well. And Lee's asking about kits, Joe. There's fixtures 26th, 27th, isn't it, for the Cup and then the league. And then kits surely like the week after, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd imagine so. They seem to come out. There isn't a fixed time when they come out, but I guess Ed Sheeran's sponsorship deal will run until June the 30th. So I don't think we'll see anything before the start of July. I'd imagine that's when they will come. The EADT did a podcast with Mark Ashton this week where he confirmed we're with Umbro next year. I think it was seen as a given, but I think that's the first time it's been officially confirmed by someone at the club that it'll be Umbro next year. And there's a new sponsor to come with a bumpered sponsorship deal, which I think is the biggest one outside gaming. Ooh. I think everyone seems to assume it's going to be Halo, who've obviously become big sort of club partners in recent years. I've got it.
There you go.
And I think they sponsored like the World Snooker Championships. So they're obviously trying to get their name out there in that regard to local Stowmarket-based company. I think it's another, if it is them, we'll find out, but it's another good sponsor if it is from the back of Ed Sheeran. I don't think anyone would have the same publicity and reach as Ed Sheeran did, but no, another good one, local firms.
Never realised they were that local, Joe. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they're involved with McLaren F1 as well, aren't they, too? So a very big brand these days. So that would be, good news. And I think a lot of us, particularly those of us who availed themselves of the Umbro end of season deal, are now happy that the logo stays Umbro for a little bit longer and doesn't mean we have to go on eBay and sell it straight away. So good stuff there. Also, shout out, I was at the Fabio Wardy fight last week. Were either of you guys there as well?
Yeah, brilliant night that was.
Tell us about it, Joe. I blinked and missed the key moment.
I think I saw it, but I'd had quite a few before and quite a few after, so I can't quite remember exactly what I was doing for that moment. But no, I thought the whole night, just a shame about the weather because the fan zone was really good, but they put the marquees up there for people to stand in, so you didn't get too wet. Obviously, some of the people on the pitch were getting very wet. I wasn't one of those. I had a nice view from block H2, sort of seeing right into the ring. But I thought the whole atmosphere, the whole spectacle, everything around it was really good. What they were doing with the floodlights, the flames. Yeah, and it's the only sort of time was sort of between about round 6 and 8 where it looked like the fight had just totally drifted away from him and it was going to be yet another defeat at Portman Road for us all to endure this year. One last one for 24-25 until sort of that moment of magic, sort of Jeremy Sarmiento style moment of magic from Fabio, just pulling that out of the bag from nowhere, and then the place just erupted, and the atmosphere from then on into town afterwards was so good.
Yeah,
was just
Yeah.
Rocky-esque, wasn't it? I
It
mean,
was a little bit.
because he was getting his arse properly kicked, wasn't he? He really was. And the guy just never seen anything like it. He just walked into it, didn't he? It's incredible.
Yeah.
But
I came home,
anyway.
Dave, and I was trying to put it in. Joe's talked about Sarmiento there. I think we were talking about it in football terms. It was more like the Carlos Edwards winner at Derby away, having been pummeled for the whole game and not had a sniff under Mick, and then suddenly in injury time.
I've told you my long-winded story about that day, haven't I?
Oh well, I probably want to hear it again. Yeah,
too long-winded to tell now, but I was with my good friend who Joe knows quite well, and I think you might know him, who was quite involved with Ipswich at the time, and we ended up that day in the director's box.
Oh yeah.
Being the only Ipswich fans there was no other director. I'm sure I've told you this story, but cut to the chase. We're in the director's box, being very good, getting battered from pillar to post. They missed a penalty. I think they hit the post. And then obviously you say Carlos Edwards gets the ball like 92nd minute, it's like parting of the waves, isn't it? It's like, go on. Buries one in the far corner from 25 yards, and absolutely crazy in the director's box. Sitting, go back for the old post-match shenanigans in the boardroom, and their directors walked in, including their CEO, and we're like this. And to be fair, he walked straight over to us, arm on the back, and said, "Oh lads, if the shoe had been on the other foot of Portman, exactly the same."
Exactly right. Yeah. Well, so congrats, Fabio. Thank you to Trevor for nudging that on the chat. Yeah, really good night out, wasn't it, Joe? And it'll be interesting to see who he fights next. And Justice Hooney's got a big future ahead of himself, as long as he can't. Yeah, as long as he doesn't trade up. That's a phrase that I now know thanks to Eddie Hearn. So we'll see what happens next for Fabio. Let's
and also you've got Ed Sheeran in a few weeks, and it really was the town and the stadium putting its best foot forward, showing itself in a really good light, which is
great show.
All part of this growth of Ipswich Town as a club, isn't it?
Agree.
Yeah, and it would be great to see Ed in the new shirt, wouldn't it, on the 12th, 13th, whatever it is, 14th. So keep your eyes peeled there, and there will absolutely 100% be a kit reaction pod with at least Joe and I, the self-proclaimed Blue Monday kit aficionados. Let's jump into the kind of key talking points that have got people agitated, quite understandably, but I think we'll try and put some facts and reassurance out there, but it's worth talking about this because other people are talking about it, and we need to kind of understand where we stand in the kind of food chain, don't we, having been recently relegated. So Kieran McKenna, guys, a lot of rumour mills ahead of an official announcement by Spurs that they were going to go for Thomas Frank of Brentford, which was obviously then confirmed Wednesday, Thursday, wasn't it? And Kieran McKenna, as he was last season, any vacancy was going to be linked, but his name was mentioned pretty early doors, wasn't it? In terms of Joe, do you want to do our annual disclaimer about the betting market for managerial jobs, just so we get that out of the way?
Yeah, these are very, very small markets, so it doesn't take a huge amount to move the market. They're almost not set by traders, where because people are like, the money just moves the markets, but that's not really the case in actual, unless you're betting on the exchanges. But when you look on the exchanges for these sort of markets, there's so little bet on these. The total markets are so small that if all of a sudden 5 bets from Ipswich of £50 come in for Kieran McKenna, the bookies will think, why are 5 customers from Ipswich doing this, and just react just to push it shut because they don't know where it is, because it's not a market of like goals, team selections. It is just purely a selection going on, and people will know what is happening before it's released. So it's a strange market. And like I say, Kieran McKenna, when he was appointed the Ipswich manager, was never in the betting at all until someone put him in the night before, and all of a sudden he was like 25-1, 8-1, odds on, because obviously someone found out it was happening. They put him in, chucked a load of money at it, and the bookies just panicked and just shut the market down effectively. So they're not always the best guide, but they're sort of the guide to who people think is getting
who's in the
job.
running.
For whatever reason.
And massively, I'm going to completely negate all the stuff we've said, because I'm going to talk about what the bookies are saying. I've got Sky Bet's top kind of 4 or 5 who are in the running, and Keith Andrews And we all knew that he was a great. I saw someone post on Twitter. I always thought Keith Andrews was a great potential manager when he was on loan at Ipswich. He's now the front runner there. He was the set piece coach, wasn't he there? But it's highly thought of. Kieran McKenna next. And then Ange Postecoglou feels like a fan betting market driver to me rather than actual legitimate rumour. Danny Rawls' names come up again. And Yetel Knudsen, who is it Bodo Glimt, I think, maybe?
Yeah,
Linked with Norwich once upon a time as well. And Scott Parker's kind of in the mix there, largely out of Fabrizio Romano sticking his name out there. So do you want to talk about the runners there, Joe? Or should we deal with McKenna's situation here? Because he's going to be linked, isn't he? So should we get that out of the way?
Yeah, I guess really McKenna's the only thing we're interested in from our side. But it sounds like from what we hear from our various sources that the club aren't particularly worried about this at the moment. It's not like last year where if you wanted to find out what the club were thinking on it, it was just straight batted away and it was obvious something was going on and they were doing what they could to solve it. It doesn't seem that that's the case this year. And I guess the only time it becomes a problem is if Brentford don't get maybe choice A, B or C, because whether that's because they want somebody who's in the building already, someone who's got European experience, somebody who doesn't have even an 8-figure release clause to get out of the club. And if like say plan A, B, C, D goes wrong and all of a sudden Kieran McKenna, they see, okay, well, yeah, he's expensive. He's more than we want to spend, but this is who we now need to get. And then they shut the garden sink at him. Is that a phrase, the garden sink? The kitchen sink.
Kitchen sink. But if you've got a garden sink, Joe, good luck to you, mate. Yeah.
Throw the kitchen sink at McKenna in Ipswich, then I think that's the only time we need to worry. But it doesn't feel like that's going to be the case at the moment. So fingers crossed it stays that way and we can just carry on preparing for the season.
Yeah, and if I was to bet on which member of the Blue Monday team has a garden sink, it would be probably Dave Diamond. What's your take on this, Dave?
No sign of a garden sink.
No,
there's always.
Old guard might be a sink.
Dave wouldn't know. That's just for the staff, isn't it?
Yeah, right. There's always going to be speculation. I mean, crikey, I go back, as you know, back to the Bobby Robson days, and pretty much every close season, although different times, he was linked, as we know, with Barcelona, Everton, Leeds, you name it, Bilbao, I think. So there's always going to be speculation about McKenna, and this is a job where, as soon as Postecoglou went and they targeted. Well, even the speculation about Postecoglou before he went, it was Thomas Frank very much. Iriola from Bournemouth, obviously they've gone for Frank. At the time, I think Cochrane, he's number 2. I think there was perhaps some speculation that he might perhaps stay, and they were looking for him to stay, but he's now gone, leaving Keith Andrews. But as far as McKenna, look, there's always going to be this speculation. But I think, it's different now. I think noise is slightly different to what it was last season. And as Joe quite rightly said, you just don't see him being their first choice, I wouldn't have thought.
And there's a lot of chat about Brentford's stature. I guess we need to be. We've had this chat before about the whole season, basically, when we did the pre-match show about. We talk about history and stature of football clubs, and I guess Brentford are established Premier League now and have been there for quite some time. Well backed, well run off the field.
Absolutely.
But I guess in terms of the suitors that McKenna had last summer, obviously we could talk about whether his stock has fallen after the season with us and relegation, but it doesn't feel the same, to Joe's point, as last season, does it? And no. The fact that it's Brentford going for him rather than someone else. Do you want to talk to that, Dave?
Well, I think a Brighton, Brighton, let's face it,
Fulham.
Again, Fulham as well, but Brighton were a few more seasons, certainly more seasons established than Brentford in the Premier. I mean, Brentford, as you quite rightly said, is a really well-run club. Yeah, small stadium, small support, haven't got the history, but then look, they're now an established Premier League club. However, interesting for them now. Obviously, manager's gone, taking his number 2, taking some other staff. Looks like Mbuemo's going to go, probably, maybe even Visser as well. So you're starting again, really, aren't you? I mean, but Frank did it, didn't he? Did it with Ivan Toney and other players. Sell these players on for big profits. So yeah, I see with those players leaving, quite a pressured job for somebody going there. And I just don't see it with McKenna at this stage, I don't think.
What's your thought on that, Joe? What would the expectations of Brentford be of a manager that they bring in now? Is it to take them further, or is it to keep them where Frank kind of had them?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And I think it is going to be a difficult job because, like I said, we talk about that normally Brentford and Brighton get grouped together as maybe because they're both owned by a fan who's sort of made their money in the betting industry. They've both been very smart with data transfers over the year that they seem to be put together. But I think you'd probably look at someone like Bournemouth maybe as a step up from Brentford at the moment with regards to what they've been able to spend, what they spend on transfers. Yeah, the new one, yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? And I know they're going to be trying to upgrade their stadium because that is a garden shed effectively at the moment. But Brighton. Well, look, you see, Brighton have spent £30 million on an 18-year-old Greek teenager today. They're in a different stratosphere to Brentford at the moment. Yeah. And whilst Brentford can sign maybe Kane Lewis-Potter for 18 million and give him a year to get into the side, I think if you look at the stats, probably 17th biggest wage bill in the league, I'd imagine, is Brentford. 17th biggest squad value in the league is Brentford. They're just how well run they've been, and that includes the sort of management, the stability, and everything from that side is what is their superpower in Mark Ashton talk, which sees them finish 9th, 10th when they're the 17th budget in the team. And it feels like if you were to look at every team and see what is happening, I think they're probably the one where you think there's big sort of warning signals going off around those, because they've never had to change manager since they've been in the Premier League. And Thomas Frank has been, he's the manager that took them up after a failed playoff campaign before, took them up, has kept them up. The first year when they came up, I think they managed to sign Christian Eriksen on a free transfer and just got themselves over the line. Ivan Toney had obviously been brilliant for them. And they have recruited brilliantly and they have moved players on when they've needed to. But it does just feel like I don't see what their next step is from here. They seem to be very much at their ceiling, and their ceiling might see them finish 16th last year and 9th this year. But they do seem to be one where Brighton, as an example, feel very, very established in the Premier League. They feel like they're selling players like Caicedo for 100 million and bringing in Alexis McAllister, and he's winning the World Cup while he's a Brighton player. They just seem that real step above them, and then all of a sudden you're talking about maybe like Wolves potentially, and they're probably Wolves, Everton. That probably like 4 or 5 teams that probably start the season with one eye looking behind them rather than up the table.
Yeah, Wolves just brought in 18 million quid in transfer fees, but go on. Sorry.
Yeah, Brentford is right. Brentford. If they lose the players, I mentioned the manager, assistant, backroom. Some of the backroom staff gone, destabilised, isn't it, and almost starting again.
And I guess, sorry, Rich, just to go the other side. If you're Kieran McKenna and you want to get into the Champions League, what's the best route to it? Do you feel like, chance if he's a Brentford manager, chances are they're going to have enough to stay ahead of Leeds, Burnley, and Sunderland. So he's going to be in the Premier League next year. If we are able to get up this year, who would be back to finish higher next season in the Premier League? Brentford in their 7th Premier League season, or us going back up in our 1st. So you think if he could take over at Brentford, finish 9th and 9th for 2 years, that's probably more impressive than taking us up and getting relegated again.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go next, Dave. I'll put that one to you then. I mean, in terms of, if you're a manager, we still forget that McKenna's still quite young and at the start of his career. If you're looking 5 years ahead rather than 1 year ahead, obviously in the immediate future, Brentford Premier League, if they sell Visser and Brumo, they've got a big war chest to spend there, and they've got good analytics. I think they're linked with players regardless of the Thomas Frank situation anyway. So there's always going to be the upside of the first year there with Brentford being where they are and we are where we are. But in that 3 year, 5 year time horizon, if you're Mark Ashton selling the dream, assuming we get back swiftly, is the trajectory for Ipswich greater than Brentford just more generally? It's a controversial one. I might be triggering Brentford fans to watch him, but
it really is. You'd love to think so. You really would. I mean, and just getting back to McKenna, if he does stay and we do get straight back up again, well, his stocks rising again. He's back to where probably where it was this time last season and beyond, considering that he's just been in charge of a relegation season. That's an interesting one. I mean, you'd think with the with the size of ground, the support, and everything that goes with it, size of club, why not? So, just as I said, a really, really interesting close season for Brentford. Just to see, I think perhaps next season's just going to be a case of not entrenchment as such, but if they are destabilised, Brentford to that degree, it's just a case of maybe hanging in there and consolidating next season.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Give us your thoughts in the chat about that. We've got plenty of time for Q&A and your thoughts throughout the show, and get them in the chat if you're watching on demand as well. But it looks, I think the headline on this one is that there's always going to be chatter around high profile, well-designed people like Kieran McKenna. It feels like this is one where potentially the interest in real life might go elsewhere, which is positive. And therefore, we just hope that no one else is in need of a managerial change in the Premier League, because that's basically, Joe, we've exhausted all the options after that, and everyone else looks more attractive, don't they? So, is that fair?
Yeah, and we also know that he committed his future to Ipswich. Would that be the terms you'd use when asked?
He didn't use the word at the moment, which
Yeah, where previously last season he was very careful around his wording and certainly didn't say that. But just filling it up here, my full focus is on town. That's where my focus is. I've spoken about it before, so I'm not going to answer the question every week. I've already answered it, and nothing has changed in that department. My full focus is towards that. So he was very much, are you going to be here next season? Yes, was his short answer on that. Obviously, maybe had Tottenham decided to go for him rather than Thomas Frank, it might have been a tougher job to turn down. But I don't like Brentford is a great job, but I don't think it's the hardest job to turn down because I don't think they're probably going to pay him what he is getting paid here. I don't know whether that's gone down with relegation or that, but he's on a fantastic contract here with a big release clause. And
that's an interesting question that someone's just posed there. If, heaven forbid, he does go, something happens as he goes, how many on that shortlist, Rich, that betting shortlist, do you think would be on our radar?
I was gonna bring that one up as like a break glass in case of emergency podcast. This is Mike's question you're talking about there.
Yeah.
If he does go, do we want to indulge that one?
We want to speculate. No,
I don't like it. Don't want to talk about it.
Well, I think if people want to see who would we go for, just look at the Brentford betting list and look at
look
at the Middlesbrough betting list and maybe look at the Bristol City one, and across those three, you're gonna see who is there. And there's
Danny Roll seems to be the
Danny Roll, Michael Carrick.
I quite like. What about Rossini? Or do you think no?
Yeah, I'd do that.
He signed a new contract in April as well.
Saw that. So. I didn't realise till I saw this the other day. He replaced Vieira at Strasbourg, didn't he? I didn't realise that.
Sort of part of the Chelsea group, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, we've done that one. We'll plenty of time to come back to it if folk have got other thoughts. Mike, we answered your question.
But we don't think we will be coming back to this one, do we? We think sort of by early next week, this is job done. We move on.
Yeah, won't need to break the glass.
That's the hope. Hopefully no podcast klaxon, at least in a negative sense. So there you go. I think we've done that one. Moving us on to the next topic of conversation. Trevor's put it here, Joe. Poor Kieran Slicker. Not a great time for him in his battle for Scotland. Trevor mentioning needs to be lined out there. Do you want to canter through the kind of international situation there? Should we start with that one?
Yeah. It was a real tough night for him. It was live on the BBC on Friday night. Scotland played Iceland. It was only a friendly, fortunately, but I think the sub keeper got injured in the warm-up. He was like the number 3 keeper, and the second choice keeper got injured in the warm-up. And after 2 or 3 minutes of the game, Angus Gunn goes down injured, has to go off, and Kieran Slicker is chucked on. And it was a night. He had a nightmare. There was no way around it. Effectively, the first goal is a little bit unlucky, but he sort of gets a little bit caught with the ball and just puts a left-footed clearance out, but it's just headed back around the halfway line straight to a striker who puts it in the goal without a defender getting there. Maybe he needed some help from his defence there. He passes the ball out again to the other team a little bit later. The second goal, he gets pinned on his line, and then the ball sort of slips under his arm. The third goal just flaps through his hands.
That was a weird one. The third one was an odd one, wasn't it?
It was similar to Muric against Southampton, wasn't it? Where you just sort of, it's like he's there to save it, but yet he doesn't save it. And,
And he
just looked, and even like from that first one, it just looked like it just looked like he wanted the ground to swim up. He looked a rabbit in headlights. He looked, and I've said with him a few times, he just looks small as a goalie. I know he's billed to be 6'3", but he doesn't look 6'3". He looks sort of 6'1".
That shocks me.
He's not that broad, is he? He's not
6'3", Joe.
Well, that's what he's listed out online, 191 centimetres, but he's not. And
he looks short compared to the other keepers in the warm-up.
You see him compared to like Muric and Alex Palmer walking along with them, and even like Delap, who you see him with a lot, who's obviously his best friend, but he's just not got that build yet. And I think he needed to go out on loan last season. He hasn't, but
I think you talked about it, Joe, didn't you? Like,
I think he was strange at SPL clubs, and he's had a very, very strange career because he doesn't play for our reserves or under 21. So I think he's only played 3 games for them across 2 seasons. So this season, all he's played is 1 under 21s game, 10 minutes in the FA Cup against Bristol Rovers that he came on for, and whatever he's played for Scotland under 21s, maybe 4 or 5 games for them. So you've got to play for him. He's got to play next year, and like the only things I'd say with him is positive. Back in October, he signed a new 4-year contract, so he's contracted in Ipswich till summer of 2028. So it's not like he's coming out of contract. He's got to find something to go. He's got ample opportunity and ample time to get this right. But yeah, it was a real horror debut, and one that he's going to really struggle to bounce back from. And George Hurst played well in that match. He had a goal disallowed after McTominay was offside. He scored the rebound there. And then in the following game against Liechtenstein, George Hurst did get his first goal for Scotland. Kieran Slicker, they pulled up 2 keepers and put him back on the bench, and the keeper didn't have a single shot to save in the whole game. So it would be nice that he sort of played that game and just been able to just sit there and twiddle his thumbs and get a clean sheet and come out from there, but it wasn't the case. And then
just very quickly, Joe, who do we think is the last Ipswich player to score an international goal for Scotland?
Did Christoph Berra ever get one for us?
Yeah, that's a shame.
I'm pretty sure he did. He must have done.
Okay, I was thinking it might be as far back as Walkie, but that.
Yeah, otherwise it'd be Walkie or Brazil.
Yeah, Walkie Brazil. Well, Walk probably. Yeah, Walkie Brazil. Wow. Yeah.
And then it's sort of been a busy international break. Like Cameron Burgess played 2 games. They part of the Australia side. They beat Japan 2-1 in Perth, which is his. I don't know if it's his hometown, but that's where when he moved from Scotland to Australia when his dad. Career took him out there. He lived in Perth, so I'm sure it was a great for him to go back there and play, which I think he's mentioned in the interview there. And then they beat Saudi Arabia 2-1 in Jeddah, which sees them qualify for the World Cup. I think after they beat Japan, they were all but there. Bar a big goal difference swing, they were not going to make it. So that leaves Cameron Burgess going to the World Cup next year. So we obviously wonder if he'll be an Ipswich player then. Does this qualification change anything? I guess he'll know that he needs to be playing week in, week out to go to the World Cup. So that probably affects things there. A few guys went away with Ireland. Sammy Smodics pulled out the squad. So it's Darrow Shea and Jack Taylor went there. Jack Taylor made his first start in a 1-1 draw with Senegal on the Friday night in a friendly.
Darren McAntony got some dough for that, surely?
Yeah, maybe a friendly, so he might not have done.
Oh, okay.
And then Darrow Shea started both games. I think Taylor came on in another friendly with Luxembourg, a 0-0 draw. Classic there. And then, obviously, similar to Kieran Slicker, another guy that had a bad international break was Ali Al-Hamidi, who managed
to... Dave?
Yeah, got sent off against...
Did you see it?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen it.
Got sent off against South Korea for a high boot.
No, he got sent off. I haven't seen it.
Some bad pictures doing the round of it where you see his boot right up there. But when you actually see it, he has his boot up and the guy puts his head in and he tries to pull it away. It doesn't even really look like it touches him, but VAR decides it's a red card. They lose that game. He misses the next game and they go, obviously it's 48-team World Cup, so they now move on to the next phase of qualifying. So they didn't get out like Australia did. The top 2 qualified, 3rd and 4th, go to the next stage, so he's in that. Nathan Broadhead was an unused sub for Wales in both games. And then just a few of the under-21s played. Ash Boatswain played for Montserrat. Josh Pitts played for Malta under-21s. Henry Gray for New Zealand under-20s. And Jacob Matsionis went for a training camp in Lithuania under-21s. But then I guess last night is the international that most people would have seen live on Channel 4, England under-21s versus Czechia, 3-1 win. And I think Livramento got the award, but I think it's quite close between him and Amari Hutchinson as man of the match. And from the very sort of first second of the game, he really flew into life and had an excellent game.
Yeah, let's we'll come back to that in a second. Very quickly, Dave. Norman mentions this before we finish on international stuff. Burgess linked with Valencia. I've not seen that one, Norman, but he has been linked with the
I
departure.
saw that today. Yeah.
If he's staying, is he signed his deal by now? Do you want to speculate on that for us a little bit?
You would have thought so. I don't know. Maybe he felt excuse the pun, aggrieved, quite literally.
Ooh.
Last season, obviously missing out to our far younger signing from Hull. But certainly when he played last season, he certainly didn't really let anybody down at all, did he? Obviously, got the World Cup coming up. I'd be surprised. I'd love him to stay in the Championship, of course you would, but I'd be surprised. Given the teams he's been linked with and the opportunities there, I'd be surprised if he stays with us.
Yeah,
I really would.
We'll see what happens.
Accrington to Valencia. There you
go. Living the dream, eh?
Yeah.
We'll be back after this to talk about Amri.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
How are we doing, guys? We're at the halfway stage. Are we hanging in there? Are we staying hydrated? It is very warm, isn't it? We're gonna I'll look at everyone's okay. Yeah, two fingers.
Good.
Yeah, you can see this. Good. Right, there we go. Joe's just always, he's got his giant glass as always. So Omari Hutchinson, then Joe. Did you watch it, Dave?
Bits of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like his usual self
Lively.
for Ipswich, didn't he? Yeah, he's all over the place, wasn't he?
And I think someone might have even been Joe that commented in the Telegram group. He's pretty much the only player there who wasn't playing on starter, who wasn't playing from a Premier League side.
Yeah, and
currently.
Joe Hart seemed to like him, talked quite nicely about him, didn't he? Involved in the build-up for the first goal, a pre-assist. But Joe, it's probably we've kind of got used to, I think. Well, maybe we haven't got used to given the first 20 minutes of what we just done so far about McKenna. But with this attention of Premier League football and attracting star players like Amari Hutchinson comes speculation and links, which don't feel as a fan of the club that they're at particularly helpful. And it feels like this is shop window territory for Amari, doesn't it? Which is not great to be talking about, is it?
No, and the Athletic, their match report was headlined Amari Hutchinson and England under-21s lay down a marker at the Euros. And it basically just fed, Hutchinson insists the Euros is his main focus, blah-de-blah, but performances like this will have been noted by managers and sporting directors wanting a winger who can also play inside. So it was very big that was the story, that he had a really good game. Ipswich has been relegated. His teammate Liam Delap has just gone to Chelsea. Is Amari Hutchinson going to go anywhere? I think it's been reported that he has a £35 million release clause. Well, we know when Mark Ashton, again with the EADT I mentioned earlier, did his interview, said that there'll be a couple of big sales or a couple of sales this summer, and I don't think that meant Liam Delap plus Ali Al-Hamadi for £4 million to someone in the Championship. I think that meant Liam Delap plus a Leif Davis or a Dara O'Shea or an Amari Hutchinson or somebody that you're going to be getting proper money for. So I guess we wait and see how he goes. But if he plays like this through the rest of the tournament, I'd imagine that £35 million is going to start looking like a bargain, like Liam Delap did. Maybe not quite as much, but
no,
he is too good for the Championship. We saw that in the run-in last time. He was from sort of February, March onwards, he was the best player in the league, and he's a better player now than he was then. I think he'd be ludicrous in the Championship next year, and hopefully we get to see him be that.
Dave, Trevor asked the question, do you think Amari will stay?
I mean, that's a tricky one. I personally think he'll go. I think if it is, I'd say kind of agree with Joe there. If it is 35 million, if that is the trigger, then I'd say we are reasonably well protected there. I know Ashton, spoke a few months ago about being well protected over the Liam Delap thing, and look, that might well come. I haven't seen it with sell-ons and stuff, but yeah, 35 million. That's a big stretch, and as Joe, it'd be a cheat. He'd be a cheat code in the Championship next season. He really would, wouldn't he? So yeah, as Joe said, let's hope it is with us, but. Yeah, I mean, I think if someone comes in with a bid of that sort, that level, then I think we're going to be sorely tested to keep him.
But where does he go? So he's not got the market that Delap had, and I doubt that a newly promoted team necessarily is going to.
Probably are looking at a Brentford or a Bournemouth.
Brentford are losing in Buemo, aren't they?
A Brentford, a Bournemouth, a Fulham, somewhere like that.
Palace,
Palace.
You'd think, some of that ilk.
Okay.
Even like a Spurs or something like that, I think. But
yeah, how many after? So 2. Is that enough, Joe? 65 million brought in potentially. Is that enough?
Well, I think it's enough. I don't think we had any financial pressure to sell Delap even. I think as a club, financially we're fine. And generally why teams that get relegated need to sell players it's more about cash flow than it is actually about balancing the books. And it seems like from our backers that cash flow isn't a problem or a major problem or any problem for us. So we can sell as and when we want to rather than be forced into it. But the problem is what's forcing us into it is the clauses that some of the players have. And if Amari is 35 and somebody comes and puts that down and says, here you go, that's when it happens, isn't it?
I mean, a kind of comparison, Bellingham just went to, was it 32 million, Joby Bellingham to Dortmund?
Yeah. And he's not.
So it's up there, isn't it? That got to be.
Well, we'll enjoy watching Amari in the under 21s for the next few weeks, and hopefully some pre-season friendlies, and hopefully we get him to the end of the window, and then 35 million comes in. But we might want to get that deal done quite quickly, won't we?
No disrespect to Amari, just let's hope he doesn't perform quite so well in the next few games.
He doesn't just leg and miss a couple of games.
Oh yeah, blimey!
The problem is we're not in control of the window, and these transfers will be pushing us, and they'll be happening right until the very end of the window. Whether a team starts the season badly and they get a couple of injuries, and all of a sudden they want to pull the trigger. That's the issue now. Where last year we were at the top of our food chain, and we didn't really have any players we thought we were going to lose, and we were bringing them in. This year we're now in that middle part where, even right up until that transfer window slams shut, things could be happening.
Because you guys have been talking about it in Telegram. It's not something I generally indulge in, but even the likes of Sam Smodic has been linked with a move, hasn't he? I mean, nothing concrete. I guess, Dave, I'm trying to, you've got a lot of wisdom and, being around the block. You've got enough garden sinks.
Go on, dig, keep digging. Go on.
Is this, it feels quite a unique time in our history, and because I don't recall a time where we've had as many saleable or like assets that are attracting interest from outside. Is this unprecedented? Because it feels it's quite relentless that it's all one way as well. I'd love some incomings.
I think it is. It certainly has been in the current football climate of the last, well, let's face it, 10, 15 seasons probably is. It's just gone completely bonkers, transfer fees and everything else, and, players' wages and stuff. So, yeah, it is. We are in an unprecedented position. I've seen Smodic. That's a quite an odd one, because look, he did very well, and I think we missed him. Certainly missed his physicality at times in games towards the end of the season. Absolutely did. But he missed a lot of football. Right, he scored 4 goals, and generally when he did play, he was one of our better players. But I just don't see that. Surely that's just speculation.
Well, who knows? I mean, it's not going to take a huge amount to prize him away, is he? And
well, no.
If we make a small profit, but why
again, you'd hope that he's with us, because again, just judging on the last time 30-odd goals for Blackburn, you'd think it'd be outstanding in the Championship for us.
I think all these players have had a 40% pay cut, so they're all going to want to be back in the Premier League. They're all going to think they're good enough to be back in the Premier League because they've all been good enough to be signed by a Premier League club previously. So it's just. I'm sure there'll be some people who are unhappy at the start of the season, not to the extent that they'll affect their performances, because they know that they'll need to keep going, but there will be a time when a couple of them are told that our sales are now made and you're just going to have to put up with it and get your head down and try and get back to the Premier League for next season.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of it's just is agent posturing, isn't it? Of course.
Yeah, I think that was more it. I'm looking for you guys to reassure me that we should kind of. I mean, I'm not great for just trawling through the transfer rumors on Telegram or social media anyway, but it would be good to hear some stuff that's coming in as well as going out, wouldn't it? I'm not wrong to feel that it feels like it's very relentlessly about people leaving the club rather than coming in. Or is that just me?
That's all gone a bit quiet. I mean, there was chat about the young lad from Chelsea when Delap was making the move across. Maybe there'd be some sort of reciprocal deal, but that's gone obviously very quiet at the moment. So there hasn't really been a lot of talk about any ins at all, has it really? I mean, obviously speculation in our Telegram group, even that's gone quiet recently. You're right.
there's
It's
not a
certainly
huge
been
amount,
more about
is
the
there?
outs.
I guess the thing with the outs is they're all the talk is to bigger clubs. So there's bigger news, but I'd say there's only really been Darren O'Shea linked with these, Sam Spoddick's linked with these. There hasn't really been much of any substance to it other than the Delap stuff, which has been going on since about October, really. But the ins, I think we've only had like Mark Guiu, Emmanuel Latte-Laff, and Divine Barmo strikers, Jens Kajust as a midfielder. And I think that's about all we've really been linked with so far, isn't it?
The City guy, yeah.
There you go. Pull your finger out, Marcus, and that's what we're after.
Yeah, come on,
give me some incomings to make me feel to make me feel better about myself. Good stuff. Thank you guys on that one. Plenty of time for questions and thoughts. I've seen some of them. Keep them coming in. Anything you want to put to the guys before we say goodbye? As and when stuff happens, we'll try and do podcasts. As we said, we'll react to kits, we'll react to fixtures, we'll react hopefully to some incomings, frankly. That would be good, wouldn't it? And a new 5-year deal for Kieran McKenna. So we'll be around as and when. And as we get into kind of pre-season friendlies, you'll see a much more kind of regular pattern of shows from us. But we're still around. The Telegram group, we mentioned that. The conversation continues seemingly 24/7 over there. So if you go to Blue... Say again?
Thriving.
That is. That's hustling, bustling over there. So yeah, if you want to join in the Telegram chat, head to our website, bluemonday.itfc.co.uk. There's a 2-week free trial. So give it a tester and get to know us and figure it all out. And then hopefully you stick around and can indulge your transfer speculation as much as you like. You won't find me there too often though, but everyone's entitled to their own thing. So yeah, everything you need, Blue Monday, itfc.co.uk. Final bits and pieces, guys. One final little bit of transfer stuff, Joe, just very quickly on Charlie Warren, signed to Bolton from Felixstowe Walton today, 21-year-old ex-academy player. I think left probably quite young, I think. And I mean, good for him. It's a good move. Obviously, it's League One, isn't it, with Bolton still? So, but yeah, fair play.
Yeah, he scored a lot of goals for Felixstowe last year. I think something like 30 odd goals for Felixstowe. I think they finished second in the league and then subsequently lost to Brighton in the playoffs. But no, he'd had a really good season. I just think he's one that I'm sure Ipswich knew all about him, but he's probably just a little bit old. If you think we signed Charlie Wood from Needham, who's there, and I think he's 16, maybe just turned 17. Same with Walker Shabazz Edwards, who signed from Brighton, so he played in that same game against Charlie Warren. I think he's 17. I don't think he's yet 18, but Charlie Warren is 21. That's a big difference in youth football. 4 years, and I think for the club we're trying to be at the moment, I think sort of a 21-year-old coming in here, it's like I say, he'd be the oldest player in the under-21s team, and is he of the same level as what's in there already? Is he better than like Boniface and Tom Taylor, who are 2 years younger than him? It's going to be a real difficult one to go from there. But we obviously wish him all the best. He has been at Ipswich at some point in the past. I think he went from Ipswich to Needham, and I think Needham sold him to Felixstowe. I think he even retained some of that. So if the transfer fees split, I think Needham will be getting some, but I think it's only about 7K. It's that sort of range. It's not something that is a big one. But yeah, you don't want to see too many Suffolk non-league boys going into the clubs like I think Josh Stokes at Bristol City's done quite well at Cambridge and Aldershot previously, and maybe he's one that we maybe should have tried a bit harder with previously. But I think the fact we've signed Charlie Wood and Walker Shabazz Edwards shows we are in that market as well now. Yeah,
good stuff. Yeah. Finally, ITFC Women announced their retained list today. It's always bittersweet, Dave, isn't it, when you kind of have a marquee season, get promoted, but unfortunately you have to part ways with certain players. And there's some really key contributors. We spoke to Maisie Barker at the end of the season. Sadly, she won't be retained as things stand, along with Grace Garrett, is someone that you singled out on the podcast a few times, and Ella Rutherford's a big name that appears to be moving on as well. Do you want to give your thoughts on those three?
I mean, I looked at that earlier on the retain list, and it seems it's the initial sort of band of brothers that got them promoted that have been, the Summer Hughes, obviously the Peskets, and
Lucy O'Brien's now, isn't it?
Lucy O'Brien and Tasha Thomas. So the sort of like the mainstays of the team, so to speak, for the last since I've been watching 3 seasons probably. Seemingly, as far as I'm aware, are all pretty much all retained. I think I read they're in still in negotiations with the goalkeeper, Negri. Is that right? Did I see
No,
that?
so Natalia Negri's been offered a deal, but it's Nina Miolo, the third choice.
Sorry,
keeper.
the other keeper. Sorry, yeah.
And Casey J. Bonnick, who scored that worldie in the
Oh
final
my
game of the
God.
season. So they're still in discussions with her.
She's like about 16, isn't she? She's really young, isn't she? Yeah. What goal that was? Top bins, wasn't it? So look, there's always going to be a transition of players, and sad to see that some of those players were the players that got the women's team, finally got the women's team promotion. But again, it's transition, and you look ahead to next season, which is by all accounts is going to be extremely tough, and definitely a huge step up in class, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe, it's kind of, I've described the transition for the women's team out of the National League into the WSL2, as it's now known, is kind of similar for us going into the Premier League in terms of teams just have that physicality, that athleticism just as a default. And then on top of that, they've got the football skills as well. So it's not a surprise necessarily that some players are moving on, and we expect quite a lot of recruitment, don't we, this summer from the club?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of recruitment last summer as well, wasn't there, to almost like upskill it. And it was sort of players who had played at championship level, dropping down into like the third tier, the Fornal South, whatever league it is there. But who came up from the Northern League this year?
Forest, I want to say.
So that's a shame. Another Premier League club have gone up there because it's Forest, and Sheffield United have been reprieved of a relegation.
So it's a tough division.
Yeah, so it's all bigger teams in there, isn't it? Where you've got big budgets coming from the men's side of the game floating across the women's one. But yeah, like you've just got to try and hit those physical numbers straight away, don't you? The division isn't going to wait for you, and I think we've got currently about 13 players contracted, isn't it? If they say that, so yeah, so you're going to be looking at least 9 or 10 players, aren't you? And some of those will be on loan, of course, but I guess you're going to need a high. I think high caliber is probably a wrong word, but maybe a loan players that more ready for first team football than what we've had. We've had very much development players coming in to help them push on, and generally most of them have done well and pushed on. But you need players that have maybe played half a season in the WSL, not players who are at a WSL team and have been on the bench a couple of times. Then you need that next step up of player, the ones that have been there, done it, and got the t-shirt, so to speak.
Yeah.
And is there? Sorry, Rich. Is there any word on? Will they start the season at Felixstowe, or is that unlikely? Or?
Not yet. No confirmation of anything really. I mean, the season starts so much later. But yeah, I will do my best to try and find a member of the club who's willing to speak to us. I'm always asking, so hopefully we'll find out someone and get some details. But yeah, so I guess the plans start now, don't they? And the retain list is the start of it. So hopefully we'll hear soon, Dave, and we'll talk more about it here on Blue Monday.
How many clubs? Sorry. 2 clubs relegated from the Premier League, or how many? Or was there relegation from?
It's 2 from 2 go down,
right.
And then they recut the kind of north-south divide to make sure it fits.
Right.
But obviously, Blackburn dropped out in advance of the league season, so that's why, as Joe mentioned, Sheffield United, and that happened 2 seasons in a row now. It was Reading last year, wasn't it?
Well, Reading dropped out, but they didn't replace him, so they just went with 11 last year, didn't they?
Yeah, so 2 go down. So yeah, it's going to be really competitive, and yeah, the club are going to have to go some to compete, and I'm sure the budget will be there to do that, hopefully. So yeah, wait and see. We've got some thoughts and comments that I'll put in front of you guys. We have plenty of time left, so if you've got a thought for Dave or Joe, let us know now before we say goodbye. Joe, this one from Mike, probably a little bit of clarification here. He kind of talks about Lee Grant's departure. Set piece prowess wasn't the best. Do you expect revolution? Bit unfair on Lee Grant. That's not necessarily his job, is it? Set pieces.
That was an attacking coach, wasn't it? So whether there's a rejig around there, I think Mark Hudson would be doing the set pieces, and
that's what I thought.
It did seem the set pieces went downhill when Rumoured came out of the side. So maybe it was a goalkeeping issue. I know there was other issues with Rumoured as a goalkeeper, but it did seem like we lost someone who could dominate their box on set pieces, and that really harmed us. But we'll see where we are with the goalkeeping situation soon.
Yeah, and
attacking set pieces were
not great, was it? But I guess championships are different kettle of fish.
You just don't get that many, do you? That's a problem.
Yeah, true. Yeah, 8
or 9 corners game in the Premier League, you get 2 or 3. So
yeah, good point.
Norman's asked a similar question. I mean, shake up to the coaching team, I guess, in terms of supporting the manager and making him feel wanted, giving him a budget to bring in some more round pegs for round holes and all that kind of stuff would be useful. Analytics and that kind of stuff. I don't know if scouting network, all that stuff, Dave.
Has there been any? I haven't. Sorry if I've missed this. Has there been any talk about replacing Grant with? Not yet. I haven't seen.
Not yet, but you'd imagine it will happen.
Oh yeah. You would think so.
And there was something on. There was a job advert for a sort of head of analysis.
I saw that.
There, which I think to pull together all the different, like the recruitment, the data, and the other parts of analysis. I think Mark Ashton commented that they're trying to get recruitment people or other staff, but they're trying to get them out of top clubs, so it's difficult to get them out here. But yeah, we're not standing still, we're not cutting back budgets because we've been relegated. It's very much all systems go to push ahead to get back into that Premier League at the first opportunity.
Yep. Dave, I'll put this one to you from David. It's more of a statement than a question, but I'll try and turn it into a question. The biggest task, David says, for the season ahead is creating a band of brothers. We've seen how individuals do not function as a team. No one can blame individuals for maximising their worth. But he's right, David, in terms of we've had this double promotion with largely the same faces and have supplemented them. But we've got quite a new team that's come down, haven't we? And we'll be replacing and adding more in too. So David's right, isn't he?
He's certainly right. You've got to try and find that again, haven't you? With individuals that come in, you've got to try and find that again. But don't you think that comes with winning? That comes with winning games and a winning mentality, and confidence. Which we know is that we're very much was obviously lacking 4 wins all season, 1 home win was sadly lacking last season. So I think that comes with, certainly. You build confidence, you trust. Say Band of Brothers sums it up absolutely perfectly. You'd say that the League One to Championship squad and the Championship squad into the Premier League. That was that hardcore of 7, 8 players that did the business. So very difficult to replace that. But you start winning games again, and you'll get that back.
Just got to send them to army barracks, do a Roy Keane pre-season and kill a pig and eat it together. I saw a rumour about Nathan Broadhead today on socials, Dave. Joe, sorry, I couldn't avoid that one. Derby, actually, I think it was. Chris asked, will Nathan Broadhead be here come the end of the season? End of the transfer window, sorry.
I personally don't think he will. I think he's one that I wouldn't say surplus to requirements. I think he's still an excellent player. But when you look to see what you've got, Jack Clark, Sam Smodics, who both played in that left-hand role. You've got Jaden Philogene, who'd probably want to play there if he could get the choice. And we probably know that Nathan Broadhead just physically is one that's going to fall short of that Premier League level if he needs to. And he's from North Wales. You've got Wrexham coming up, spending a lot of money. Maybe that would be a good move for him to head back sort of that way. I don't know, but I'd say he's been a fantastic player and someone I've really enjoyed watching. But I think it's just when you see what he does off the ball, it probably isn't enough.
Yeah. It's an interesting, I'll put this to you, Dave. Paul, considering we got relegated with 22 points last season, we seem to have an awful lot of players wanted by Premier League clubs. We heard a lot this season in the live chat, a lot of people processing their emotions about our season in different ways, but how we got recruitment wrong. To Paul's point, maybe do we need to give the colour club a little bit of slack?
I think absolutely. Yeah, I'd say we got recruitment wrong. I think we got the best players that he thought we could get, the perhaps value for money, you would say, with the players, resale values for some of the players, I think. And, a lot of those players, you'd be looking at Jack Clark, you'd be looking at Jacob Greaves. Okay, there's been some talk about Jaden Philogene, whether he's got this relegation release clause or not. Well, he certainly didn't light it up in the Premier League for us last season. So you've got these hardcore players that we have signed that hopefully will obviously stand us in good stead next year in the Championship. But I tend to agree with Paul there. Yeah, 22 points is a hell of a lot of our players being coveted, but if you look at them in the summable parts, I've got an individual who just covered Omari Hutchinson, who I think we all think, possibly will go to Premier League side. Delap's already gone. We haven't spoken about Leif Davis tonight, actually, which is an interesting one. And he's one player where there really hasn't been, I haven't really seen any speculation about, really, which was quite interesting, which probably, getting back to Paul's point, mirrors the season he had. He didn't, for one reason or another, the role he was expected to fulfill in the Premier League as opposed to running games in the Championship was absolutely chalk and cheese. And people say he got found out. I kind of disagree with that. It was the role he was expected to fulfill. So Yeah, I think Paul's certainly got a point there, but yeah, let's just hope it is just two big outgoings, and the nucleus of the squad will be here day one.
Yeah,
it was interesting with Leif Davis though, because it's sort of like a big thing in American football called Pro Football Focus, which ranks all these players and has their own metrics and does it. And they've come across to soccer, and they've been doing it. And they actually put a top 50 players in the Premier League out last year, and Liam Delap was, I think, 32nd, but Leif Davis was there in 33rd, and they said his crosses were like the third best. He was the third best crosser in the league for the opportunities he had. His one-on-one defending was very good, but I guess it maybe doesn't take into account positioning issues and areas like that. But I agree with Dave. A lot of times, a lot of his issues were the system. Like he's getting called out on match of the day because we let in a goal after 1 minute to Newcastle, and they're saying, well, it's 1 minute into the game and the fullback's gone miles up the pitch. And you think, well, yeah, if Cameron Burgess reads the long ball correctly and heads the ball off the pitch, that's what happens. And we're done, and it's 0-0, and there's a throw, and Leif Davis is back for it. So I do think there's there. But I think I think he was sort of going back to where I was. I think he was like the third fastest player in the league last year, top speed. So he does have that Premier League physicality as well. But so I wouldn't surprise if he's one that gets looked at. I think there was talk Bournemouth, but then Bournemouth signed someone for less than we'd want, who's got a couple of caps for France and has played 150 games in League 1. So it's very, very difficult on the market. But I guess, like I say, when you look at it, you've got like 8 or 9 clubs at the top. Your big 6 and Aston Villa, Newcastle, probably maybe even Brighton in there. Then you've got your next tranche of clubs, which are the other Premier League clubs, your Wolves, Crystal Palace, Fulham's. And then you've got the sort of 6-7 clubs in the sort of purgatory between parachute payments and that. And then you've got there. So any of the clubs, effectively, Leeds, Burnley, and now Sunderland coming up into it, we've probably got 8 or 9 players that would improve their starting lineups. And it's just how many players have we got that improve the starting lineups of the teams in that next tranche of players? Maybe not many. And I guess they're the ones that have the real, when there's interest that's real, it's anyone who's going to get a move to Wolves or Crystal Palace or Fulham or Brentford.
Oh, they'll pick them off.
They're the ones where we will struggle to keep players. It's just that Leeds, Burnley, Sunderland, where when you look at it, Jacob Greaves would probably get in their team. Darrow O'Shea would probably get in their team. Leif Davis would probably get in their team. Obviously, Liam Delap before he went. Amari Hutchinson, Jaden Philogene. All these guys would probably improve them because they are the ones that went up. We got 96 points last year and 22 this year. They've got 100 this year, and what they're going to get next year, probably not. They're not going to get 45, are they?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, that. And the game that we talked about with recruitment this summer, is it about survival or is it about trading and playing the long game? It does kind of feel like, to Paul's point and the discussion we've had, we're playing the game a bit better. We bemoan how Norwich always seem to get value out of their transfers and their players, and we never do. So it's interesting to see this dynamic. Mike has mentioned in the chat as well, guys, because Leeds loaned a few players out, didn't they, with a hope to get them back when they got promoted again. I know that some of them left anyway, but do you reckon that might be the route that we go down? We loan some players out to Premier League clubs rather than do permanents?
I think Leeds signed terrible contracts. So they basically said to players, if you're on 80 grand a week at Leeds and you get relegated, you'll go to 50 grand a week in the Championship. But if you can find a team that will pay you 80 grand a week, there'll be no loan fees. So effectively, it allowed the players to keep their Premier League contracts, and Leeds got nothing for it. So hopefully, we don't have any of those sort of deals in there, because they weren't good for them.
Yeah. Final question. I'll put it to both of you from Mike. If you could take one player from another champ club, who would you take? It's a nice little chestnut question.
Is he still there? Gus Hamer.
Oh yeah, good point.
Without doubt.
Yeah, he's a good player, isn't it? Yeah, we all know sort of midfield is the issue for us. Can you include Flynn Downs at Southampton? Is he does he count as a Championship player? Someone along those lines. But yeah, but this is the issue now. We're now at that stage where a lot of these players at Championship teams just aren't good enough to step up to the Championship extra teams that we are currently in. The
parachutes,
that team there. So we probably need to be looking further afield.
We do. Well, Scouting network, get that recruited. Start with that. Good stuff. Gentlemen, thank you. I assume, like me, you're sweating. We've lost a good amount of body weight tonight. So thank you, everyone, who's joined us, giving up your Friday night. There's a load of you here. So please do give us a like before you say goodbye. And if you haven't already subscribed on our YouTube channel, whenever we react to stuff, it will appear in your feed. And if you're listening in podcast land, we appreciate you too as well. 5-star rating on your app of choice. Very much appreciated. We'll be back when there is something that either one of us wants to talk about or something that we have to talk about. But for now, enjoy your weekends. Say goodbye, Dave.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching, listening.
And Joe.
Cheers, guys.
And enjoy your weekend. We'll be back. Hopefully, we've reassured you. I think that's the job tonight. A bit of reassurance. Avoid the thunderstorms. And we'll see you soon.